Hello, my name is Sister Connie, and I'm here today to talk about widening our tents. From February 17th to 26th, 2025, Sister Mary Berenika Komorowska and I, who serve on the general leadership team of the Felician congregation in Rome, accompanied Treasurer General Sister Catalina Marie Batres on a visit to Our Lady, Mother of Africa Vice Province in Embu, Kenya. Our trip was a fascinating experience, one that took us from the airport in Nairobi to the Vice Provincial House in Embu, to the construction site of the new formation house in Kararumo, to the postulancy in Isiolo, through several national wildlife reserves and conservancies, and on to the Kipsing mission. We also visited our sisters in Nairobi, Matiri, and Kevoti. Before leaving Rome for Connecticut in May, I began to think about preparing a PowerPoint presentation on the Felician Foundation in Kenya for the Enfield Associates, because I wanted them to have a greater appreciation for the fact that the Felician congregation is more than Enfield or Lodi or Livonia. So I wrote the script and prepared slides for the presentation, which is in two parts. The first part tells the story of the Kenyan Foundation from the moment in 1979 when Bishop Silas Njiru toyed with the idea of going to Poland to find missionaries to manage the needs of his flock in his diocese in Kenya, to the actual arrival of the sisters in Kenya in May 1983. The second part fast forwards 42 years to the February trip to Kenya. The development of the Kenyan Vice Province may be a part two someday. I invited the Enfield sisters to the presentation. Their appreciative response convinced me that it had to be shared. So when I visited the sisters in Lodi, New Jersey later that week, I shared the presentation with them as well. At its end, Sister Marie Alexander Siegel was so moved by what she had seen that in the spirit of widening our tent, she said it would be absolutely outstanding if we could somehow use the technology we have to do that. Provincial Counselor Sister Suzanne Marie Cush suggested that turning the PowerPoint presentation into a YouTube video would make it available to many people. The closing liturgy of the September 2024 Provincial Assembly encouraged the sisters to think big, dream big, and get a bigger perspective of our relationships with each other and others around us. I believe that moving forward in this way is in the spirit of Mother Angela's boundless love of God, as well as a response to Jesus' invitation to fish at a different spot. Finally, I ask you to listen with your heart and see how God is working in the Felician congregation. The year was 1979, and Bishop Silas Njiru, the shepherd of the Diocese of Meru in Kenya, was trying to manage the needs of his flock. So while meeting Pope John Paul II for the first time after his election, the bishop asked about the possibility of going to Poland and looking for missionaries for his diocese there. Bishop Silas recalls the event this way: "The Holy Father said, 'Go, and you will definitely find them.'" Bishop Silas said, "Then I started the long process of applying for a visa to Poland. At first, I could not find the Polish embassy, and when I finally located it, they refused to give me a visa. I was constantly asked why I wanted to go to Poland. My answer, that I was looking for missionaries for my diocese, was insufficient. This, however, did not discourage me. I still remembered the words of Pope John Paul II, "Go, and you will find them." After some time, I went to Germany. I thought that being close, I would try to get the visa again. This time, I succeeded. I received the visa without any problems, so I set off from Germany to Warsaw in search of missionaries to my diocese of Meru. It was 1979, the year of Pope John Paul II's historic visit to Poland. The visit had a profound impact on the Catholic Church and played a crucial role in the eventual fall of communism in the country and across Eastern Europe. The visit, which occurred between June 2nd and 10th, saw millions of Poles turn out to see the Pope, galvanizing the nation and challenging the communist regime. The communist authorities did not look very favorably at people of the Church. Not only had a Pole become a pope, but here was an African bishop asking for a visa for Poland. That same year, Bishop Njiru traveled to Warsaw, a guest of Bishop Władysław Miżołek. No one could explain why the bishop brought a guest from Kenya to the provincial house of the Felician Sisters in Warsaw. After all, the Felician Sisters were not a missionary congregation, and the sisters thought, there are many missionary religious communities. Why did he choose us? After leaving the provincial house chapel where he had seen sisters adoring the Blessed Sacrament, Bishop Silas said, "I want these sisters in my diocese." After meeting Mother Mary Angelica, the provincial minister, and her council, the bishop presented his request for the sisters to begin missionary service in his diocese of Meru. When Bishop Silas returned to Rome, he paid a visit to the Felician Sisters Generalate to ask the Minister General to mission Felician sisters to his diocese. There he met Mother Mary Amadeus Lewicka, Minister General, and Sister Mary Simplicia, the Secretary General. Years later, he recalled, "The leadership in Warsaw and Minister General were a little surprised at my proposal, but I noticed that Sister Simplicia liked this request. While in the United States, I visited Sister Simplicia to talk about it and beg again. Ask, and you will receive." After the visits, the leadership of the Felician congregation began to consider the request of Bishop Silas. Mother Amadeus even shared this offer with Pope John Paul II, because the congregation did not carry out any missionary activities, and there were fewer vocations. In reply, she heard, "Maybe the time has come for you to go on mission. Go, and vocations will be found." After consultation and encouragement, in December 1980, Mother Amadeus and Sister Angelica set off on a long journey to Kenya, where they met Bishop Silas and looked at the proposed mission sites. They visited Meru, Tigani, Matiri, the community of the Consolata Sisters in Enkubu, Gitoro, and the Kenyan Sisters of Nazareth in Enkabuni. On their way back to Nairobi, they stopped at Kieni, a mission run by Italian fathers from the congregation of Our Lady of Consolation, the Consolata Fathers. Their visit was an intense apostolic experience, and they soon realized that the harvest in Kenya was great, but the laborers were few. The two sisters considered many factors, including climate, housing, language, and religion, and they had much to say about their trip. They found Kenya a fascinating country. The landscape, flowers, plants, and mild climate make it a veritable paradise. Beautiful snow-capped Mount Kenya dominates the area. However, poverty also abounded. Most people lived in mud huts with thatched roofs. Water was scarce in most areas, and people walked 15 or more kilometers daily for their water. It was a common sight at the end of the day to see large numbers of women carrying bundles of wood home to cook their daily meal. Their stove was nothing more than several larger stones in the center of the hut, over which a pot is placed. A mixture of corn and beans was their daily fare. Bananas were plentiful. The sisters said, "Our hearts were moved to compassion at the sight of so much material and spiritual poverty." The two sisters learned that wherever Catholicism had taken a firm hold, it was due to the tireless missionary labors of priests and sisters. However, they witnessed many neglected mission posts which were abandoned in the past 10 years or so by the sisters because of the vocation shortage. People, especially children in these areas, pleaded with the sisters to come to them, to speak the word of God to them. Dispensaries and clinics were painfully neglected. Mother Angelica and Mother Amadeus were especially moved by the plight of the children, as they noted a visit to a hospital for children and saw the children unable to walk because of malnutrition, a widespread problem among the young of Kenya. Because of improper diet, blindness too was common. It was a pathetic sight to see the children up to 2 years of age in a children's home for the blind. After talking with the priests who work there, as well as with the diocesan administrator, Mother Amadeus reported that the Kieni mission would be the first missionary site where the Felician sisters from Warsaw would serve. Bishop Silas would have preferred to have the sisters on the other side of Meru because he knew that the diocese would be divided and that Kieni would not remain in his newly created diocese. However, he concurred with the decision of the Felician leadership joyfully and gratefully. The pioneer sisters first had to study English in England for 1 year, then learned Swahili, and of course, the dialect of the people where they would be stationed. Mother Amadeus asked the sisters to pray so that the Holy Spirit would guide the provincial superior and her council in their decision-making. She wrote, "As the invitation to Kenya stands before us, may we be open to the will of the Father." Shortly after, on May 1st, 1981, the General Administration granted permission to Mother Angelica and her council to accept Bishop Silas's invitation and make the necessary preparations. The initial plan was to send 5 sisters to the Kenya mission. Once again, Mother Amadeus pleaded with the sisters throughout the congregation to support this first Felician missionary venture to Africa with fervent prayer and sacrifice. Entreating a blessing on the pioneer missionaries, she prayed, "May the Holy Spirit prepare their hearts for this special ministry of evangelization and strengthen them for the challenge awaiting them in Kenya." In January 1981, Mother Angelica and the Provincial Council chose 5 sisters from the list of volunteers who were to be the first to go for mission. They were Sister Mary Donata, Sister Mary Ruth, Sister Mary Noemi, Sister Anna Maria, Sister Mary Emilia. It is worth mentioning that Sister Ruth and Sister Noemi still serve in Kenya. Sister Donata returned to Poland in 2005, where she ministers in a parish in Warsaw and prays for missionaries. Sister Anna Maria served as Secretary General from 2012 to 2018 and currently serves as local minister in the Generalate in Rome. Sister Emilia left Kenya in 1997 and returned home to God, where she intercedes for those still working for God's glory in the mission field. In June 1981, after the school year ended, the sisters began preparing for missionary work in Africa. They started learning English and hoped to go to England for this purpose. However, on December 13th, martial law was declared in Poland. All schools were closed. Passports that had been obtained with difficulty lost their validity. Getting around the country was very difficult. Entry to and exit from Poland became almost impossible. Borders were closed. So the question arose, what next? Finally, in January 1982, the sisters welcomed the news that they could go to England without any problems. And on February 11th, Mother Angelica accompanied the first 5 sisters to London for further English study. When they left for England, the sisters were not sure whether they would be able to return to Poland or whether they would go directly to Kenya from England because martial law was still in force. In London, they stayed with the Irish congregation, Poor Servants of the Mother of God. At the end of 1982, martial law was suspended, and the sisters returned to Poland in December to spend Christmas in their own country. However, Poland was still a communist country, so obtaining a visa to enter Kenya and work permits for that country was not easy. Hoping to expedite the process, Mother Amadeus decided that the sisters would come to Rome. After spending Christmas at the Warsaw Mother House, they visited their families and places dear to each Felician. Kalisz, the birthplace of Felician foundress Sofia Truszkowska, the National Shrine in Częstochowa, and Kraków, where Blessed Mother Angela spent her last days. After retreat days on February 1, 1983, Father Wacław Kuflewski, director of the Commission for Mission in Poland, celebrated the Eucharist in the Provincial House Chapel, asking God for his blessing for the sisters' missionary service. The farewell dinner that followed was a bit rowdy, but also injected with a note of sadness because the sisters were facing a great unknown. Some sisters said goodbye to the missionaries thinking it was forever, as the question arose, would they meet them again in 4 years? They cried. That same evening, Bishop Edward Samsel arrived to give the sisters a pastoral blessing for missionary service. Early on February 3rd, the sisters said goodbye to Warsaw and flew to Rome. They lived in the Generalate, at the time located on Via Casaletto, while expanding their knowledge of English and visiting many of the city's holy places. They met Father Ireri Mukobo, a consolata missionary from the Chieni Mission, who was completing studies in Rome at that time. Father was very happy to teach the sisters the native language of Kiembu and to familiarize them with the Kenyan culture, and especially with the customs of the Embu tribe, where the sisters would go later. On March 16th, the sisters received their work permit, permission to work in Kenya, which made it easier to obtain a Kenyan residence visa. Shortly before Easter, Sister Angelica arrived in Rome to accompany the missionaries to Kenya and be with them in the initial period. On April 19th, during a solemn Mass in the Generalate Chapel, the sisters received missionary crosses. Finally, on April 30th, the sisters left Rome and arrived in Kenya, which was to become their second home, on May 1st, 1983. The Chieni Mission, which had been in existence since 1922, included a parish church with 18 affiliated chapels and 2 boarding schools for girls, a primary school with 250 students, and a high school with 460 students. The mission also had a hospital with 150 beds with 4 departments, a maternity ward, and wards for children, women, and men. There was also an outpatient clinic for expectant mothers and infants at the hospital. The hospital served outpatient clinics outside. Besides, it had a nursing school requiring 2.5 years of education. The sisters said the image of poverty and simplicity everywhere, as well as the poor hospital, remained strongly in their memories. From the first day, some of the sisters were killing spiders and various types of worms and frightening off lizards, who might have been thinking, "Who dared to break the silence in our house, which had been vacant for years?" Now I'm going to fast forward more than 42 years to Monday, February 17th, 2025, when Sister Mary Berenica and I accompanied Sister Catalina Marie, Treasurer General, on a visit to the Sisters of Our Lady, Mother of Africa Vice Province in Embu, Kenya. On Turkish Airlines, our flight took us through Istanbul before touching down in Nairobi at 3:15 in the morning on Tuesday, February 18th. Insisting on the privilege of meeting us and getting us to the Vice Provincial House in Embu, despite the very early hour, Vice Provincial Sister Mary Purity Warira Ireri was there to meet and greet us, along with Sister Mary Claire Kabutia Munganya, her assistant. We stopped along the way at Immaculate Heart of Mary Convent in Nairobi to meet the sisters and join them for breakfast. We were showered with flower petals and welcomed with song by the sisters, novices, and 15 young women who were in Embu, participating in a 2-week-long come and see upon our arrival at the Vice Provincial House. There are now 73 professed sisters in Kenya, 8 live-in affiliates, 7 postulants, 4 first-year novices, and 5 second-year novices. After resting from our journey, we toured the campus, including the main building, the bakery, the cows, the pigs, and 100 chickens. That evening, we enjoyed entertainment by the novices and young women who were participating in the Come and See program. On Wednesday, after saying goodbye to the Come and See participants, but before we left for Kipsing, we met the women who design and sew beautiful church vestments, as well as other items, including school uniforms and blouses for the postulants. Once on the road, our first stop was at Karurumo, the construction site of the new formation house. Sister Purity said she was pleased with the progress being made, though recently the project has encountered some setbacks. Next stop was at the postulancy located at Our Lady Help of Christians Convent in Isiolo. We were once again showered with flower petals and welcomed with song. We also visited the parish church and greeted the school children who were playing outside. After lunch, we continued our journey to Kipsing, where, following supper, we stayed overnight with the 4 sisters in Divine Mercy Convent. Kipsing is in a dry and expansive scrubland, and the nursery school serves as a beacon of hope for the children of the Samburu people. The Samburu are nomads who rely on cattle, goats, sheep, donkeys, and camels to make a living. These are the main assets that the people own. They live in manyaras, traditional huts made from natural materials used by nomadic families. Sister Berenica and I shared the warmth of their hospitality. 10 of us managed to get inside one of the huts. Mother and infant sleep on one side, children on the other side, and food is prepared in the middle. As we sat with the Samburu people in their manyadas, a Samburu woman with her infant in her arms demonstrated the family dynamics of this pastoralist community. In Samburu culture, families are typically extended, with multiple generations living together. Men manage the livestock while women are responsible for the household, caring for children, and domestic tasks like milking. This interconnected structure ensures the family's survival and preserves the cultural traditions of the Samburu people. In this region, access to clean water is limited, and the small water tank outside the school building provides water for both drinking and hand washing. The cancellation of USAID funding could significantly impact the ongoing efforts to support this mission, making it more important than ever to bring attention to the needs of the people in Kipsing. Inside the classroom, dedicated teacher Philip, who dreams of becoming a priest, strives to educate the children despite numerous challenges. One such challenge is the termite-eaten classroom door, which leaves the room vulnerable to dust, wind, and unwanted animals, making it difficult for students to focus on their lessons. A glimpse of the school's kitchen shows the stark reality of daily life in the region, where resources are scarce, but hope is abundant. During our visit, we shared a moment of connection with the mothers, offering them freshly baked bread from the Dea Grazias bakery at the Vice Provincial House. They enjoyed it along with tea during the morning break. The children were grateful and enjoyed the bread and tea. We left Kipsing after a wonderful celebration of singing and dancing performed by the older students. On the road again, our trip took us through several national wildlife reserves and conservancies. Our driver actually left the road and drove onto the plain so we could get a closer look at the elephants and giraffes. Kenyan roads can be rough and rocky with a lot of washboards. The challenging terrains necessitate tires that excel in deep mud and provide enhanced traction and stability on diverse surfaces as well as off-road capability. We arrived back in Isiolo and joined the postulants and their director, Sister Mary Faustina, for a late supper. After a good night's sleep and a very early Mass and breakfast, the postulants sent us off with a wonderful program of song and dance. Before leaving Isiolo, we joined the pastor and priests in the rectory for coffee and mandazi. The sisters are very highly regarded by the clergy in Kenya. On the road, we encountered a baboon family, and we enjoyed watching them eat the lollipops we shared with them. Our last stop for the day was at the Matiri Mission, where we joined the sisters for lunch. On Saturday, February 22nd, several communities of sisters arrived in Embu for the early afternoon Mass, celebrated by Bishop Peter Kimani Ndungu, assisted by Father Victor Mbogo. A great celebration dinner followed. It was then that we met Sister Winfred. Here is how she describes what happened to her on December 7th, 2023. It was around 3 p.m., and I had sat for 2 exams at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa when God saved my life. Just near the gate of the university, I saw a vehicle which I can say was flying. When I moved towards the roadside, I saw that the vehicle had already lost control and was headed in my direction. I jumped over the perimeter wall, but as I stretched my right foot ready to jump the trench, the vehicle hit me from the right side. In an instant, everything went dark, and I lay helplessly under it in immense pain. The engine was very hot, and the oil was dripping on my face, but I encouraged myself with the scriptures. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. Within 10 minutes, which seemed like an hour, many well-built men lifted the car and carried me to the opposite side of the road. I was extremely shocked when I discovered that I could do nothing on my own. I could drink using a straw. I begged God to grant me serenity to accept what I could not change. I remember asking whether that leg really belonged to me. I could not feel it at all. During all this time, I could not imagine how it would be without a leg. I encouraged myself that if my leg would be amputated, it would not be a hindrance for me to serve God. I had metal affixed to my pelvis, hip, and right leg. The wound in the lower abdomen got infected and was sometimes oozing. Wounds on my hands, right gluteal and left leg were deep. Sometimes I could scream during the dressing. It happened one day that the pain relief manager visited me and inquired how I was progressing. I explained to him, and he later suggested that I be sedated during wound dressing. The wound nurses tried their best, but the wound seemed to heal very slowly. The doctors suggested that I undergo skin grafting. For a long time, I also struggled with high fever. I was on oxygen for around 1 month. I celebrated Christmas in the hospital. I remember asking the infant Jesus for the special gift of stabilizing my body temperature, which I received at midnight of the same day. In July, Sister Winfred underwent extensive surgery to have metal pieces removed or replaced and a new prosthetic hip emplaced. Her affected leg is now the same length as her other leg. On Sunday, morning prayer at 7 a.m. was followed by breakfast and celebration of the Eucharist at 9 a.m. Sister Berenica took advantage of the opportunity to visit the Embu main prison with Sister Mary Wutsia, Director of Novices. The inmates were very grateful for their visit. After morning meetings and dinner on Monday, we traveled to Our Lady Seat of Wisdom Community in Kevote, the newest Felician community in Kenya. The sisters here minister at Consolata Girls Elementary School. After a brief social at the convent, we toured some of the facilities, met the students, and took photos with them. We traveled back to Embu for supper. After the meal, the novices provided entertainment before we cut the special cake. On Tuesday, February 25th, after Mass, breakfast, and the final farewells, we once again boarded the van and headed for the community at Our Lady of Perpetual Help Convent in Nairobi. After lunch, we toured the offices of the heads of departments for the Archdiocese of Nairobi, Caritas, and the Cathedral Basilica of the Holy Family, with Reverend Father Dr. Michael Ndichu, the Cathedral Parish Administrator. We rested before and after supper in private rooms in the priest's residence and departed for the Nairobi airport at 1:30 in the morning. Happy to begin our long trip home, but saddened to leave our beautiful Kenyan sisters.
you.